Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women Making Big Sales. This is Melinda Chan. In sales, we always talk about time management. I know you're an entrepreneur, you got to manage your business, and I'm telling you to go out and get more big clients. But you don't have time to call all the people. You don't have time to have lunch and dinner, and you don't have time to build those relationships. I know. I hear my clients, I hear you telling me about this. And that is why I've invited somebody who knows everything about time management because it's such an important topic. I know you're not just a salesperson selling or closing deals. You are an entrepreneur. You're probably somebody with family and you try to manage all different roles, including me. So Kathryn Hofer, she's going to be talking about everything in terms of managing your time. She is the CEO of Modern Planner, and she helps entrepreneurs manage their time better and really overcome that sense of overwhelms being an entrepreneur. So hi, Kathryn, how are you?
I'm good. Thank
Yeah,
you for having me today, Melinda.
yeah. As a fellow Canadians, we gotta say a lot of A. Your name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you will hear a lot of A's. Oh, I know, eh? It's gonna happen, so be
It has
prepared.
to happen. I'm excited when we have Canadians because I talk with so many women around the world, and I'm excited to have a Canadian a Canadian entrepreneur talking to me. But even though I talk to people in different industry or around the world, we all deal with one big problem: time management. Talk to us.
Yes. Well, time is a really big issue for so many people. And I guess when I first started my business modern planner, I wasn't intending to focus so much on time and schedule as I am now. Like that wasn't really my intention. I wanted to really help people with like big picture strategy and planning. And as I started working with clients, I just realized like no one plans anything until they first know how to plan their time. And so that's partly why I just dove into this area and I was like, all right, well, this is step one then. If I'm going to help someone learn how to plan and be a well-planned person living a well-planned life, then schedule is step one. And so it's definitely been an interesting journey, but one of the things that so many of us face is that there's these myths about time that many of us believe. And so we believe that, if I could just multitask more, or all I need is more time, if I had 30 hours instead of 24 a day, I'd be okay. Or, I can do more with sheer willpower. I hear that a lot. Or, being busy means I'm productive. So these are all kind of myths about time that I personally don't believe are really true. And so even though time management is very much a buzzword, I also don't believe that time management is actually about time, um, which sounds a little odd.
I
But
know.
I
Are you
believe,
sure you're talking? Am I sure I'm talking to the right person? You have to explain more.
yeah, I'll explain for you. But basically, we can't really manage time. All we can do is manage the choices that we make around time. And we can't add more hours to a day or anything like that. And so I believe that what time management is really about is it's about priority management and self-management. So
Oh,
those two things I believe are like the key elements to us understanding our relationship with time and then learning how to adopt that. So the
love it.
priorities is a big thing that so many of us deal with. And the bottom line is that if we don't define our priorities, someone else will define them for us.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that's where the power of choice comes into play, and
Mhm.
like shifting our mindset from saying, instead of saying I don't have time, saying it's not a priority.
Mhm.
Because I don't know about you, but I have definitely said no to an invite that I received or an opportunity that I received. And I was like,
Definitely.
yeah, no, I don't have time for that.
Mhm.
But then
Mhm.
I got invited to something else the same night and I dropped everything and I made it happen.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely.
So it happens, right? The reason we said no to that first thing was not just because we didn't have time, because we make time for the things that are most important. The issue is that it wasn't a priority. And so I really believe that it's important in our relationship with time to acknowledge the fact that it's very infrequently actually about time.
Mhm.
And more often than not, it's about the priorities that we're setting and it's about how we're managing ourselves. And so,
Love it. Love it. Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's so important, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs. There are so many things we should be doing. There's the marketing side, and there's managing, your business, and there's, the clients' meetings, clients' emails, clients' calls. So I love the fact that you're talking about
Yeah.
priorities. So how do we even get started? I mean, there are so many things. They all seem urgent, important, and necessary for our business.
That's the hard thing because people don't, us as general in society, we're kind of slowly being taught to not prioritize because everything is equal and everyone is equal and every opportunity is equal. In reality, it's not. Um, but the part of the reason why defining priorities is so hard is because it's such an individual thing. Your priorities could be vastly different from mine. And that's not a right or wrong thing. It's just that we're two very unique individuals. And so helping someone learn how to prioritize, all it really is it's about stripping away everything else and looking and really asking yourself the question, like, what is most important to me? And what am I willing to invest my time in? When we think about priorities, actually, the etymology of the word priority is really interesting because back when the word priority was entered into the English language, it was like in the 1400s, it was singular. And so it was just the word priority. And it was like that for 500 years. So for 500 years, we only ever had one priority because it was singular. And so what happens is that in like the 1900s, became pluralized. And so Greg McEwen talks about this in his book, Essentialism, because he's like, so somehow we just thought that now that it's pluralized, we could have multiple first things, because what priority actually means is it's like the most important thing. Like it's the first priority. That's what it means. And so what we've done is now we have priorities. And so people are like, oh yeah, I have 7 priorities for my company this week. But if you have 7 focuses and you're trying to do all 7 of those at one time, you're going to make this much progress on each of them. Whereas if you have one priority and that's what you focus on, you're probably going to get it accomplished. So that's part of the conversation about priority that I think is a really important piece to acknowledge and also like work through, is that most of us try to have too many. And that doesn't help us.
So do you have any suggestions for somebody who's basically sitting here and sitting in their office and try to figure out how to strip out all the things that are not as necessary and to try to define the most important things to do?
Well, I mean, in order for us to figure out what's most important, kind of like I said, is we have to be able to ask ourselves the question to ourselves and really self-reflect. And personally, I believe that we have to take care of ourselves. Like we only have one physical body that we get to use. And so I'm a believer. I'm not like I am number one philosophy. Like I feel like that can get really selfish, but I do think it's really important that we take care of ourselves. And for me, that's become a big priority. When I was 25, a little bit of context as to why I feel this is so important. I was 25 and I was in constant pain. I was clinically depressed. 6 weeks after my wedding, I was in the hospital with a diaphragm spasm. Wow. It took me 2 months to walk a normal pace again. And I just I had some extra time sitting at home after I'd been in the hospital. And while I was recovering, and I just was looking around at my life and I'm like, you know what? This isn't what I want my life to look like. I was working hard. I was a workaholic. I was making decent money, but my body, my physical body was a mess. I was not healthy. My mind was not doing well. And I was just like, this isn't the life that I want to live. And so I started making some serious changes. And one of those was putting myself first. I'd always put myself last.
Wow.
And had always put everything else and everyone else in front of me. Yeah. And it came back to bite me in the butt. And so I really, truly believe that as entrepreneurs, yes, our business is important. Yes, our families are important. But if we are not healthy, we can't help anyone. And so I'm a big believer that our first priority should be to ourselves. Yeah. So from there on, I mean, everything is going to be different for everybody. But I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, if Obama has time to play basketball being a president, we must have time to exercise. Although I don't know if I have spent enough time taking care of myself, but I am motivated. So I just have to make sure that I put myself as priority.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
apart from, trying to figure out the priorities, the most important priorities, what's the next step or what would you recommend for entrepreneurs?
Well, the next piece is really if time management isn't about time and it's about priority management and self management, then once we've defined our priorities, then it's about learning how to manage ourselves,
Hmm.
which can be a little bit tricky, but that's where taking care of ourselves comes in. But even just really learning like how to not manage our time, but manage our schedule. So learning that everything is a trade-off. That's a
Hmm.
big lesson that a lot of people don't realize. But if
Yeah.
you look at your life, if you're saying yes to something, you're ultimately saying no to something else.
Hmm.
And so understanding the relationship of trade-offs with schedule, learning or stopping multitasking is a huge one. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm an amazing multitasker. But the bottom line is like scientifically impossible for us to be able to do two things at one time. So learning how to single task is a huge part of like being able to discipline yourself to focus on one thing at a time. And that's really how we make tremendous progress
Hmm.
in our goals and in the projects that we're working on. I think creating margin in your life is a huge thing to start thinking about. I actually just did a Facebook Live this week in my Facebook group all about margin
Hmm.
and all about how so many of us have our lives packed so tightly together that if something at the beginning of the day gets behind, it's like a domino effect and it
Yeah.
affects everything else in our life and in our day. And so creating margin, all margin is just a little bit of extra. It's
Hmm.
just that little bit of space or rest or time when we're most stressed. And so what I talked about encouraging people to do is to think about, is there a time of day that is typically the most stressful for you reoccurring? You know what I mean? And so, do you have a most stressful time of day?
I
Like if you think
do.
about your day?
Oh yeah, my kids, even my husband, they know 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the afternoon, like 7 o'clock p.m. Yeah, mommy gets tired. Because I'm a very much a routine person. So 7 p.m. they become really nice. Everybody knows 7 p.m. mommy gets between 7 and 8. 7 and 8 bad time, bad time. I never schedule my interview around that time.
Interesting, interesting. And so what I encourage people to do is think about that most stressful time and what are the triggers? Like
Mm,
why is that the most stressful part of your day?
interesting.
Um, because if we can acknowledge why, and see the thing is most of us don't ask the question why enough. So I always recommend, and this is what I do with my clients, is I'll ask it 10 times.
Hmm.
So I would say, well, why is between 7 to 8 the most stressful time for you? And you might have a response. If you have a response, you can share it if you'd like.
Dinner time. I just finished work, but I have to figure out what to do with the dinner. And kids just got home. They usually hate going for dinner. I guess it's a time where it's like you said, multitasking sometimes it's not easy as and people probably shouldn't
Hmm.
multitask, but that's really the intense time of making sure everybody finished the dinner, and I'm just struggling trying to put everything on the table and
Yeah. So
yeah and
then
yeah.
what I would say, as I was like, well, why is that stressful? So we ask why again.
Ah.
And we keep going and going until we get to the point where, well, you know what? I don't prep. I'm just making something up. Okay.
Yeah.
But for other clients, like maybe it's that, well, I'm not planning dinner out ahead of time.
I
I don't have
don't. I
anything.
used to, but I
Okay.
don't now
But
these
see, so
days.
this is where asking why over and over again is like, what is the most stressful time of our day and why is that? And
Hmm.
it's like, well, there's probably things. So then what I would recommend is once you pinpoint those two or three things, okay, well, it's a transition period. So
Hmm.
people are coming home, I'm finishing work, we're trying to get dinner on the table, and then we're transitioning into getting everyone ready for bed. So like that's a transition time in
Yeah.
every single person's day.
Yeah.
That can be stressful. But then you look at, well, who's transitioning and what are they transitioning from? So I'm also a big believer in routines and in creating some routines that help us adjust. So if that transition period in your family's life is really stressful, well, who are the different players? What are they transitioning from and to? And what is a short, simple routine that could help people transition from one to the other a little bit more smoothly? So maybe for you, step one needs to be, how do you transition from work back into home life? And what's a short little routine that you can do at your desk when you're shutting everything down at a certain time, when, you know, you set an alarm for 15 minutes before your workday is officially over, and you close things down, you make your list for tomorrow. You do a short little routine that helps set you up, and then you close your computer down, you turn off your lights, you walk out of your office, you close your door. Your day is done, right? Like creating these routines that help us transition. Yeah. And so that's a big thing when it comes to schedule, is learning, like, what are the triggers for these stressful situations? And then how can we in turn really learn how to transition well, or set up routines that support us? Or, I mean, I'm also a systems geek.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in like having systems. And so having like a meal planning system that supports you. And then there's things like learning how to batch, whether it's batching in your business or whether it's batching at home. And so many female entrepreneurs especially feel like they carry more weight in the home environment, which pulls this extra weight. So not only do you need to have a business that's well run and has systems and the back end is good and have a schedule that supports you, but you also need those systems and that schedule for your home life to help it be less stressful, because they always affect the other. They're not separate entities. Right.
So if an entrepreneur, if somebody, especially when we talk about sales, there's always certain tasks that you hate doing. For example, I hate cooking. But I know that I have to cook.
So that might be another reason why 7 to 8 is a stressful time of your day.
There you go.
Just saying.
Well, that's why it made me think about, cooking is easy. Cooking, I can try to find other ways to overcome that. But when it comes to sales, and there are certain things that we absolutely love doing, there are always certain tasks like talking to our favorite clients or going out with drink with our favorite clients that we enjoy doing, we enjoy connecting. But what happens when there are tasks that we just hate doing, but we know that they are important, and we know that we gotta, connect with these people, even though we're not sure whether these people really would like to connect with us, and then we just put it off and put it off. Do you have any suggestions of how to create that routine to encourage, or system to encourage those undesirable
It's a tough one. So procrastination is a huge time trap.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about schedule and we're talking about time, so many of us deal with procrastination. Like on a daily basis, we deal with this. But the impact of procrastinating, as you just talked about, it leads to a lack of confidence. It leads to crazy deadlines. We end up feeling rushed and pressured because we're putting these things off that we know we need to do. And so it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, is understanding why you do what you do and what the triggers are. So just like we asked the question, what's your most stressful time of day and why? You can also do this for things that you procrastinate on. So why do I keep putting this off? Okay, well, it's because I don't enjoy this task. But why don't you enjoy this task? So maybe it's because you don't enjoy, maybe it's a specific client that you always procrastinate following up with. Well, why do I procrastinate following up with that client? Well, you know what? They always take weeks to get back to me. And I kind of feel like every time I reach out to them, it's a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we're getting somewhere. So if I can get enough layers of why deep to figure out that I'm actually experiencing rejection when I email this client and I don't hear back for weeks, I'm feeling rejected. And so because of that, I'm procrastinating reaching out to that client. It allows me to, when I have that reminder in my calendar to reach out to that client or schedule the next call or whatever it is that I need to do, I'm able to stop and pause and say, you know what? regardless of this client's response to me, it's not a form of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, this is how they are. They're just slow response time and email. And it's okay. And I'm going to reach out and not take it personally. You know what I mean? Like really getting to the why. And I mean, this is beyond schedule and systems. Now we're starting to talk like mindset stuff. But that's like how we can avoid procrastinating is by figuring out the why and then what our triggers are, and to be able to then discount or kind of like prove those triggers wrong and be like, well, I don't need to procrastinate just because of that. I can just find, like with meal planning, I don't need to keep procrastinating cooking. I just need to find really easy meals that are simple, that I enjoy making, that my kids can make with me, and then we can make it a family thing.
Or I can convince my husband to cook if I could. I'll negotiate with him.
You know what I mean? Even like one day a week, right? Like what are these things? And so the big thing with procrastinating is in order to fight it and avoid it, is to determine small daily steps that you can take. So most of the time we procrastinate on something because it seems like this huge thing, and we've made it seem a lot bigger in our minds than it really is. So when it comes to like schedule, you know, if I'm always procrastinating the same task, maybe it's like, you know, reaching out to a client, or it's writing this blog post. If I'm always procrastinating on it, well, maybe it's because writing a blog post is a big task. And what I need to do is I need to break down the 10 or 15 steps that I do when I create a blog post, starting with brainstorming a topic, then creating an outline, and then, you know, and down it goes until publish. And then all I do is I say, today, I'm going to brainstorm 10 topics. And then the next day, I'm going to work on an outline for one of them. So rather than writing a blog post, we break it down a little bit more. And so that's another huge reason for procrastination, is that the project's just so big and we haven't broken it down into those smaller bite-sized pieces that we can take every day to slowly move us.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell my clients that sometimes it's not natural to have to connect with your contacts, you know, especially those contacts who don't know you that well, and you know, sometimes it's hard to feel like you have to follow up, and it's easy to procrastinate. And for me, what works for me is using the calendar and always block those time off at the beginning of the day or beginning of the week, because I'm a morning person, so I usually feel most motivated in the morning. I try to connect with people. But, you know, as we head towards that 7 o'clock p.m. thing, I just become less and less motivated, and it gets harder and harder to do those tasks that I hate doing.
Yeah.
And
what you've done is you've connected the fact that most of the time, tasks that we have to do have less to do with the time it takes to do it and more to do with the amount of energy it takes.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
So that's the thing with time and all these tasks that we have. It's less about how long it takes, and it's more about, is this task energy filling or energy draining? And then learning how to put those tasks, balance them out, delegate the energy draining ones as much as we can, or put those energy draining tasks in a spot in our schedule where we have, like you're saying, you're a morning person, so you know if you need to reach out to people, you do that first thing while you've got that energy. But someone might be like 1 to 3 might be like a solid chunk for them. And they're like, that's my best time to connect with people because it allows me to, in the morning, be quiet, be focused, get my work done. And once I've got my most important thing, I can move on to that. So the energy is a really big thing when it comes to schedule. And then the other thing that is really tied with what you're saying is tracking and scheduling your time. So I'm a huge proponent of both of those, because what gets put in your schedule gets done, or it at least has a higher chance of getting done. If you have an item on a to-do list that you never assign a day and time to do, how long can it stay on your to-do list? A really, really, really long time, right? And so learning how long things take you is another really important piece of that. So not only putting that task in your schedule, but so many of us, we're just not good at estimating how long things take. We underestimate how long projects are going to take us but then we overestimate certain things, like those big projects. We overestimate and we're like, oh my gosh, well, I could never get started on that because it's going to take me like 15 hours.
Yeah.
Well, in reality, it probably wouldn't. And all you need to do is get started and do the first step, and then you create that momentum. So tracking your time and actually knowing, like, how much time am I spending on sales? Like, how much time am I actually spending reaching out to people? And being able to say, okay, well, I'm currently doing that for 1 hour a week. Being like, okay, well, am I getting the results I want? No, I'm not. Okay, so actually being able to quantify that in a period of time and say, okay, well, my goal for this new year is to increase the amount of time I spend reaching out to people to 2 hours or 3 hours or 5 hours a week, with the hopes that that will allow me to double or triple my speaking engagements or my product sales or whatever it might be, right? And so that's the value of knowing, well, how long does one of those conversations take? Does it take you 30 minutes to write an email? Does it take you 15 minutes to prep and then having a phone call? And what's the average length of a phone call? You know, if you don't know those kinds of things, you don't know how much time to put in your schedule for those tasks. So yeah, tracking, scheduling, understanding energy, they're all so interconnected.
So do you have any apps or any software tools you use to really help people increase their productivity?
Productivity, not
or time
specifically,
tracking,
but time tracking. If you have an Apple phone, it's only available on iOS, but the time tracking app called Now Then, it's now/then. It is the best I've ever used. And it is amazing because it allows you to see, you can color code your sections for your different categories of your business. But then it also gives you a summary. You can create a chart. I can see in like 3 clicks of a button how much time I spent on marketing in 2016.
Wow.
Like I can be like, okay, I spent this many hours, but then marketing is broken down into different areas. So there's online engagement, but then there's networking, and it's when I'm attending events or when I'm following up from events. And so I break my time down very clearly because I want to see, okay, this month I spent this many hours in in-person networking. I spent this many hours following up with people, and I spent this many hours on online engagement. I had this many sales. Does that amount of hours and investment, is that what I'm wanting to see? No, you know what? I invested a lot more time doing those things than I saw money. Okay, so what are the changes I can make? And it allows me to be able to make adjustments to how I'm marketing or how I'm reaching out to people. So, I mean, then you're getting into sales. But Now Then app is super great. If you don't have iOS, another really good one that's available, and it also has the web browser, is Toggle. Toggl. A lot of people appreciate Toggle in that kind of allows you to do a similar thing, and also works for a team environment. So if you have 4 or 5 people on your team, you can all use the team component and be able to see what your team members are doing and how much time they're spending on things. So yeah, those would be 2 really great time tracking.
Yeah, it's
apps.
amazing. I mean, we were just doing an interview about a social media manager, and there people often feel overwhelming. The amount of time you need to spend on social media or interacting with your potential clients, and if you're able to batch a lot of tasks, and she pretty much said one afternoon would allow you to get the rest of the month's content done. But you really have to be focused, and then just delegate that time on social media marketing only, and rather than doing all different things at the same time.
And being focused is really important, and that's part of the single tasking. And probably a lot of people have heard of the term Pomodoro or Pomodoro Technique.
Yeah, I was trying that.
And so that's like, officially, it's like a 25-minute timer. But I've worked with clients that have a hard time doing one thing for 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, start where you're at. If you can't do one thing for 10 minutes without checking your email, start for 10 minutes, and really the philosophy behind Pomodoro is that you're doing one thing at a time. So for that 25-minute block, you close all your other windows. Sometimes I turn off my Wi-Fi. You close your email. So in order to do that, though, you have to be able to turn off notifications and like set aside distractions, which is a huge, I mean, we could talk about distractions and how to deal with those for like another 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So I won't get into that. But like my phone and my computer, I don't get notifications. I don't have the little flag that pops up when I get a new email. I don't. Like, I've literally turned off everything I possibly can. I have like a little number on my mailbox icon that shows me, so I can look down and be like, oh, 3 emails, that's fine. I'm checking my emails in 45 minutes and they can wait. But if I come back from lunch and suddenly I've got like 17, I might say, you know what, I'm going to just check in on that and make sure that something with a launch or a page or a sale is like not going wrong, or you know what I mean? But that's a big thing about Pomodoro and learning how to do focused work, is that you have to get rid of all of the distractions. And we don't like that, because what happens is a distraction actually gives us a jolt of adrenaline. And so
interesting, really, it does give you that excitement that you seem really busy, even though you're not busy, but you seem really busy.
That's the thing. We're busy, but we're not productive.
There you go. Busy
and there's a big difference between those two things. And as a society, we've been taught to wear busy like a badge of honor. Like, I'm so busy. Okay, well, busy is not good. Busy just means you're spinning your wheels and you're doing a lot of stuff, but it doesn't mean you're doing the right stuff. It doesn't mean you're doing at the right time, and it doesn't mean you're doing it productively. And so it's really learning those tools. And so Pomodoro and being able to work distraction free for 25-minute blocks. I mean, even if that's the only thing people who are listening to this or watching this try, you would see your productivity skyrocket, because when we allow ourselves to block all that out and do one thing, it's amazing how much we can actually get done and move the needle forward on a project that was intimidating to us or whatever, and be like, oh, I just got that done in 20 minutes, right?
And is that how you overcome that sense of overwhelmed and it's too many things to do? Is that how you get over that?
That's a big part of it. I also encourage people not to have a to-do list that is super long. I mean, I believe in having like a dumping ground for all the things that we need to do. But I also believe, and I mean, today is not a great example. Today is one of those catch-all days for me, where I'm finishing a bunch of stuff up, have some important emails, needed to listen to a training video, was prepping for this interview. Like, it was kind of one of those days where I was just doing a lot of things. But I actually recommend that people only have 3 to 5 items on a to-do list for a day, and that you write it down in order of priority. So this is the most important, and then this, and then this, and then this, and you only work on that first thing until it's done.
Oh, okay.
And then you move on to the second thing. It's all about building that momentum and getting those small wins. And so you don't always, I mean, eating the frog is a common kind of philosophy, like do the hardest thing that you're most likely to procrastinate on first. That works for some people. Eat your frog first thing in the morning. But for some people, that doesn't work. For some people, they need a few small wins. So you just kind of have to try it both ways and see, does eating my frog work for me? Or do I need a couple of small wins on tasks I know I can get done, that I can get done really fast? And then I build that momentum, and then I'm like, yeah, I got those 2 things done already. I can tackle this frog now. So it's different for everyone, but that's a huge part of it, because most of us expect ourselves to do everything perfectly now.
Great. I know. I love this.
And that is so not, it is so not how life works. We can do a limited amount of things to the best of our ability and as much time as it takes us to do them.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. Yeah, it is so true that, that we just have to be self-aware in terms of what works for us and what doesn't. Yeah, I'm a big believer in terms of, eating the frog, do the toughest thing in the morning. It's just the way I'm built, the way I am. I'm a morning person. The toughest thing, I always do them really early in the morning. But you're right. Some people, they probably prefer doing the easier tasks and get them motivated to continue doing the tougher ones.
And maybe their best time for energy, like I'm like that. I'm not actually an eat your frog first thing in the morning. A, I'm not a morning person. And B, I'm a planner. So even though I have my list the night before, for me to feel confident, I need I still will have my power hour, but it's
Yeah.
not at 9 a.m. I do that at like
Wow.
10 or 10:30. So I get a few of these small little things off my plate that I know are just going to bug me all day and distract me mentally. They
Yeah.
might not be physical distractions, but I know if I don't get those emails done, it's just going to bother me all day long. And so being able to say, okay, and then I'm going to focus on like, this is my big task for the day, and this is when I'm going to do it, allows me to kind of bring that structure in. But the biggest thing I see with schedule is most people, they're like, I just want a new schedule. I want to be able to snap my fingers, do a few exercises, have a new plan, and it just work. And my big thing that I just talk about all the time is that finding a schedule that works for you that you love is a process. And it is trial and error. And you kind of have to try something for at least a week, if not two, to figure out if it's a fit or not. Because sometimes at the beginning, it's just uncomfortable because it's new and different and we haven't done it before. So trying something for 2 days and then being like, oh, that doesn't work and throwing it out the window, that's not supportive. Like you really need to give it an honest go. And so like when I was talking about when I was 25, it took me a good 4 or 5 years to fully have the life and health and career change and like all the things to support my schedule. Like that was a 5-year journey.
Oh, wow.
It's not like I didn't become sick overnight, so I can't become better overnight. Right. And it's the same with our schedule. Just because it's overwhelming and it's crazy right now, it didn't get overwhelming in the last 2 weeks. So you're not going to be able to fully do a 180 with your schedule in the next 2 weeks. It probably took years of stacked habits and decisions and choices and overcommitting to get you where you are today. And so it's a journey and it might take you a little longer than you'd like to see the results you want. But if you're committed to it, I have seen amazing stories from clients who literally say that like doing one of my programs has changed their life. And that to me, it makes it all worth it.
So if somebody is committed to making the change and doing the actual, really working with you to create this really productive time, productive life, how do they reach you?
I'm
Or
on
what would
Twitter.
you recommend? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I'm on Twitter. So modern_planner. You can find me there. I have a business page on Facebook. And that would link to, I have a private Facebook group. It's a free group and anyone can join it. So I do a ton of stuff. I'm doing Facebook Live training in there all the time. My website is www.modern-planner.com. And rolling out some new stuff on there. And the most popular schedule program is what I call Save Your Schedule. So it's specifically for people that it's the quickest fix I offer. I don't believe in quick fixes when it comes to schedule, but it's my quick fix version. And basically it's a self-directed portion with like worksheets and lessons. And then there's a one-on-one where we put together an action plan. We talk about the struggles, and then we put together what are the 3 things that are going to have the biggest return on your investment, and what 3 changes should you make to your schedule and implement first. And then we work on doing them one at a time.
Wow.
Building them into a habit and working through that. So that's kind of the starting point for the schedule. So
okay, well that sounds awesome because it's such an important topic, especially as an entrepreneur. I mean, these days we all play different roles. So I want to thank you very much for sharing all these stuff, your experience and working with clients and sharing with us, because this is a really, really important topic. And I really encourage people to check out Kathryn's website because it's a good website. I don't know who designed it, but it looks modern.
Well, thank you.
Great.
There's a lot of stuff in the works right now, a lot of things that are coming down the pipe. So it's going to look even better in January and February and the new year.
You've got to be kidding me. Yeah,
thank you. I'm so honored. It was so great to be able to share with you today. And I can't wait to hear stories from people that watch this video and are able to kind of make some changes. So please, 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 if you watch this training, either reach out to Melinda and she can pass it on, or feel free to send me an email.
Group training would be great. The group training, definitely. The Facebook group would be great for people.
Yeah, that'd be a great place to come and join and just be like, let me know what you thought and if you have ideas or questions. And I want to help and serve as much as I possibly can. So
Perfect. Well,
yeah.
thank you very much, Kathryn. Hey, we didn't do too many A, huh?
No, there wasn't too many A's. I was trying really hard not to be like overly.
All right. Well,
Oh
thank you
dear,
very
so
much,
funny.
Kathryn.
You're welcome. We'll talk later.